Hey guys, welcome to Cinematographs. This past weekend, I watched David Leitch's The Fall Guy, a movie starring a pretty respectable cast. Ryan Gosling plays a stuntman named Colt who ends up on a movie directed by his ex-fling Jodie, played by Emily Blunt. Stuff happens and he gets roped into this big evil scheme that leads to murder, action, and comedy. So how good is it at actually being an action comedy? Well, the humor and tone in general of the film is meta-modern, more so than Bullet Train, another one of Leitch's films that I actually enjoyed a lot. The jokes or bits rely on connections to the current world, and whether or not that's actually funny is hit or miss among people. Even though I like them, I still think that's a valid criticism of the film. The humor definitely panders more to like Gen Z than any other audience. And that's not to say you can't like the movie or its humor if you're not Gen Z, but if you feel disconnected from a lot of the references in the movie, it'll fall way flat, no matter if you understand them or not. Like there's this one scene where Gosling spends a good 30 seconds crying to Taylor Swift's All Too Well in the car, and a montage plays that could pass for a fan edit of his relationship with Jodie. And that's probably one of the more extreme examples of that meta humor, but it's not something you can really escape or ignore when watching. That's also an example of some of the film's other comedy methods. Random and unpredictable stuff happens, which I think is generally more funny than the Gen Z references humor, because although it's still not traditional, you don't have to feel any sort of connection for it to work. But what I appreciate the most about the film is how there's actual good bits in more than just dialogue. It's there in the blocking, the editing, the mise en scène, etc. One of my favorite comedic moments in the film is actually in a mini fight scene with basically no dialogue inside Jodie's trailer on the film set. Leitch lets that kind of moment play out and it's great and it lightens the mood. I give the film props for that because it feels like it's able to live up to its full potential as a funny, feel-good film in that way, meta-modernism aside. But if there's one thing you can say objectively about the film, it's that it is stylish. There's cowboy costumes, big mansions and boats, vibrant colors, and Ryan Gosling. The action sequences are wild and explosive, but really satisfying to watch. Some of them run a little bit too long, but for the most part, they are able to keep your attention and still maintain a good rhythm. Now, whether or not this comes off as cool or too flashy is up for debate, but I think it works as cool. And the biggest reason why is because of the performances. I honestly found every single one of these characters very charming or endearing, and the film might have completely failed without them. It's so difficult to deliver these lines in a way that doesn't seem forced for the screen, but they come out so naturally in all of these people. Blunt and Gosling have great chemistry together, and this is both platonic and romantic. Yes, their romance is a little cheesy, but it all fits within the context of the film. Their friendship off-screen translates over to their banter on-screen. Seeing Stephanie Hsu was a pleasant surprise, but I loved every minute she was up there. She has really great comedic chops, and her character itself was just funny. Seriously, the film could not have pulled off its style without such a likable cast. There were some little things here and there that made me feel like everyone really knew their characters or genuinely enjoyed playing them, especially with each other. I mean, even the dog got its time to shine. And the story isn't treated as a throwaway one either. Leitch says at the beginning of the movie that The Fall Guy was created as almost a love letter to stunt people. And although there's so many other things that happen in the film, that's what it is at its core. It starts that way and ends that way, and there does feel like there was a lot of heart put into writing and making the film. I wouldn't call the twists and turns anything particularly clever, but it wasn't just a bunch of goofy nothingness. I can't imagine anyone enjoying Bullet Train but not this. Take that as you will, but I just mean that they sort of float in the same style of film. But while Bullet Train is a little bit more put together and chaotic, The Fall Guy is chaotic and chaotic. It tries to do and manages to achieve a lot more than Bullet Train. The action is still coordinated, but it's all on a grander scale. And I think The Fall Guy has a cleaner resolution than Bullet Train that isn't paced too slowly or quickly. In general, the film could have been shorter, but only by like 15 total minutes. My overall rating is a 7 out of 10. And that's slightly lower than what I would maybe give it just based on my initial watch and experience, because I definitely did enjoy it more than a 7 implies, but I feel like the more I watch this, the more the jokes would get staler and staler. So while it's super fun and something I would recommend for a good time at the movies, I don't think it has the same rewatchability factor as a lot of other comedies because it relies on surprise to land a good bit of its jokes. And if you love Ryan Gosling and any of the sillier roles he's taken on, this is probably a home run. Even even without that, I feel like there's more to have fun with than not in The Fall Guy. It's dynamic and easy to watch, it doesn't take itself too seriously, and it's not complex. Leach's comedic style is one up for debate, especially with so many other films coming out this year that fall into similar quirky lines, but I think his approach to it is very much one of its own, and I like what he's doing. On a very broad level, it's a fun film that has to do with making films, and I will always enjoy that.